Hello there, this is Candela Alderete and I'm going to present my literature project. We usually think about literary theory as universal and also to express general truths about human life. It has its origins on the ancient Greek philosophers such as Aristotle or Plato. As any theory, we have theorists. We can talk about the humanistic or romantic theorists, which is focused on the writer's mind or life, okay? Then we have the reader, which is focused on the reader to create this affective experience. Then we have the formalists theory, which is focused on the nature of writing itself. Then we have the Marxism, which is focused on the social and historical context in which the writing is placed. Then we have the structuralist theorist, which is focused on the codes we use to construct meaning. We can also introduce the critical theory, which is the counterpart of the literary theory. It's this idea of no reading is theory-free, so we have to take into account what kind of literature we are consuming, because those readings can condition our thinking. However, the thing with this theory is that it is believed to have failed because of its rivalry with the critical theory and practice. We can start talking about the post-colonialism theory. First, we can talk about the suffix at the beginning of the word colonialism, which indicates a break into a phase and consciousness of a newly constructed independence and autonomy after a beyond colonialism. As an overview, the post-colonialism, it has to do with this pure critique to the Occidental literature. First of all, we should start saying that this post-colonialism would be mean to show how the story was always wrote by the oppressor rather than the oppressed. We can start introducing the theorists with Edward Said, who introduced the Orientalism concept. It has to do with this distinction between the Western and the Eastern cultures, introducing this idea of otherness, developing this point of view of the oppressed Eastern side under the Western influences of the past centuries. Following, we have Geriatric Spivak, introducing this subaltern community which is silenced by the oppressor or Western side of the world. Finally, we have Homi Bhabha introducing hybridity and mimicry. First of all, we have this mimicry concept, which means mirroring back the image of the colonizer, denying neither identity nor difference. And hybridity has to do with the reverse of the effect of the colonialist disavowal, so other discourses are denied, resulting on encouraging the basis of authority. Our next topic is the structuralism. We should take into account three main authors. First of all, Ferdinand Saussure, who, from the point of view of the linguistics, he will present this langue versus parole idea, in which the langue is the structure system of the language and the parole refers to individual speech acts. Then we have this idea of signified, signifier, and signed. Signify is the concept, signifier is the image or sound, and signed is the made up of a signifier. We can proceed talking about Levi Strauss, who, from an anthropology perspective, take the Saussure's linguistic thoughts and introduce this binary opposition, which has to do with human culture structure myths. The myth themes, it is the smallest unit of the myth, and myths across cultures share similar deep structures despite surface differences. But the important thing about Levi Strauss is his approach to structuralism, which has to do with human mind, how it organizes experiences in universal pattern, and that those patterns shape myth and social system. Finally, we have Ronald Buffon, who, from a semiotic and literary point of view, introduced denotation and connotation. Denotation meaning literary meaning, and connotation the cultural meaning. And his approach to structuralism is this method to cultural critique to show how meaning is idealized and constructed. Finally, proceeding to a more methodic aspect of the literature, we have to talk about narratology. We have two main topics. The first of all is the story versus plot. How is the difference between them? First of all, the story is the sequence of events that happen chronologically. It's what the narrator gives us, what we have from the narrator. And the plot is, it may appear at any time of the story as a flashback or as a flash forward. It's what the narrator gives us, not what we get from the author, okay? Then we have the narrator and the focalizer. Those are very different between them, mainly because the narrator is who tells the story and the focalizer is who sees the story, okay? Let's start talking about the narrator who tells the story. We have to take into account the voice of the narrator. It can be covert or overt. The covert is literally the author speaks to us directly, and overt is the character with their own history, social class, and etc. From an overt character, we have to take into account that it can be a heterodiegetic narrator, which is an outsider of the story, or it can be homodiegetic, which is a character itself in the story. It is inside the story, okay? Then we have the focalizer who sees the story. It's a point of view, okay? We can have an internal point of view, so you can feel the thoughts, you can feel what the character feels. And then we have the external focalizer. It's an outsider, it's an outside point of view. We should mention 3 authors that give us tools at the time of analyzing story. First of all, we have Aristotle, who was focused on theme and he recognized character and action, and for that he presented 3 keys: the amartia, which is a tragic drama, a tragic flow, a scene of the character. Then we have the anagnosis, which is the recognition, the character being told, being revealed the truth, and the peripetia, which is the turnaround, the hero falls from the greatness. Then we have Vladimir Prop, who was focused on the tale's structure, and he discovered 7 characters of the tale: the hero, the villain, the princess, the prince, the donor, the dispatcher, and the helper. And for those, he also recognized 3 functions focused on the main character. Although there are many, not all of them appear in a same single tale. They can appear in different order, they can appear just 1 or 2 of them, but at least 1 of them appear. Finally, there are Janet. He was focused on narration and he introduced mimesis, which is the slow telling of the story, creating this tension throughout the reading. And the diegesis, which is the shorter version of the story. The narrator gives us a summary of the event as efficiently as possible. Okay guys, thank you so much to listen my project.